Well, this takes me to the R1 formula, which was already introduced by the previous speaker. This is the practical implementation of this formula, where you just divide the amount of energy produced, both in terms of heat and electricity, and you divide that by the energy content of the waste. Well, what are the practical implications of this? So if I make a graph showing the amount of heat produced per ton of waste on the vertical axis, and the one on the horizontal axis shows the amount of electricity, you see that various operations end up with various results. If you supply power only, you will probably be there in that sort of order of magnitude. If you are able to supply a mix of heat and power there, you will be here somewhat. And if you can really maximize the supply of heat, you end up with these sort of figures. So, and then if you superimpose the R1 factor, so in other words, where is the line of 0.6, the magic line of 0.6, you will see that if you are able to supply both heat and power, you have a fairly good chance to meet the magic criterion. And on the other hand, if you happen to have a less efficient plant, which was built a long time ago, then you may not be able to achieve that. And if you're in a hot climate and can only produce electricity, then you've got a tough task as well. And so in a hotter climate like Spain and Portugal, the outcome, the best way out may be to make an investment decision where you build such an incineration plant next to an industrial user, which is going to take your steam into an industrial process, so that you can really move up into this direction and get to an R1 factor which is higher than 0.6. Well, just a few things on CO2. So I made a statement that waste to energy is a CO2 saver. Depending on a few factors, the savings can be 100 to 300 kilograms of CO2 per ton of waste. But if waste to energy replaces a landfill, which for instance in Spain will be the case, then the additional savings are of this order of magnitude. So under Spanish circumstances, the building of a waste-to-energy plant will always represent a major saving of CO2. Okay, capacity across Europe, just a few slides showing what we had in 2008. So Germany, France, the Netherlands are the three countries which the majority of the capacity. And this is how we see the future. So these are the countries where we will get additional capacity, and overall the capacity will be increased by about 4% per year. Country groups, so there are a number of countries on the top here which have had recent extensions, and their capacity is really sufficient, and in a few cases maybe a bit too much. There are major market opportunities in countries like here, so in Spain, Portugal, Italy I believe as well, but there are complications. The major extension potential is really in the UK, Poland, Czech Republic, etc. And then, of course, the new entrants, but they have got a long way to go. Then finally, I'm going to say a few things about renewable energy. We have the Renewable Energy Directive in the EU27, which says we will all make a contribution to achieve about 20% of renewable energy. Well, this graph shows what we need to achieve country by country. But altogether, the gap which we need to close in the EU27 is 1,500 terawatt hours of renewable energy extra. And that is a lot. So I did an exercise where we said, how much of that 1,500 can come from waste? And the outcome is that I estimate that energy from waste can contribute about 95. So it is not going to change the world, but it is at least 5 to 6%, because we will need to get additional renewable energy from solar, from wind, from biomass, from all these sort of sources. And out of this 95, the largest contribution is coming from waste to energy. So just a few graphs before I finish off. This was the situation in 2006, which shows how much renewable energy came from anaerobic digestion, both in terms of electricity and heat, SRF, RDF, biomass energy plants, landfill gas, and waste to energy. And as you can see, what is the growth potential for that towards 2020? You can see that of these four categories, starting from waste, the waste to energy, that is incineration with energy recovery, has by far the strongest potential. Well, I think I'm going to round off now. One of the aspects which will come back in this conference later is communication on waste to energy. And that is probably the most important issue when considering an investment into waste to energy. Talking to your stakeholders and explaining to your stakeholders what the pros and cons are of various ways of treating your municipal solid waste. And these are the stakeholders you need to consider. And we, as an organization, and our members have an enormous amount of experience in doing this in a professional way. But I know that later on in the program there will be a professional who is going to talk to us about this subject. So this is my contribution. So my statement at the end: for a better climate, waste to energy and recycling go hand in hand. It's not about one or the other. It's also not about competition between those two. Your best result can be achieved by doing both things at the same time in a clever way. And the reflection which your mayor has requested is very important, but don't wait too long, because don't reinvent the wheel. We know in Europe what the best approaches are, and I recommend that in your country and in Catalonia, you're just going to learn from that. Thank you.